Our speaker for today is Raghav. Raghav is a chartered MCIPD. He is an experienced HR professional with over 16 years of vast experience in various fields of HR. He specializes in recruitment and talent development. And he told me that he is also now into training and development. So practically, he's covered all the areas of HR, and he is here with us today to share his knowledge and his wisdom with all of you. So I am very, very excited and interested to know about A to Z of job search. What is it going to be like? Is he going to talk about A to Z about how you apply for a job search, or is it going to be like what do you do when you want to find your dream job? So we are very, very excited, Raghav, and I'm very intrigued to listen to what you're going to talk about. So over to you, Raghav.
Yep. Thanks, Tulika. I hope everybody can hear me. When I agreed to do the session for today, I was in Dubai, and I had no doubt that the IT backbone will help all of us to have an interactive session. Funnily, I traveled to India over the weekend, and I'm sitting in Bangalore right now. And you can figure it out by my T-shirt, which I'm wearing. I'm completely in a holiday mood, and the background is virtual. I'm not reading all those books here, so I'm just chilling in Bangalore. I hope the audio and video helps us through through the session. Yeah. So I'm just sharing my screen right now where I can share my presentation, and I'll take you through it. Yeah. So F7. Okay. Now go to the presenter view. Okay, Tulika, just a thumbs up if you can see the screen now. I'm sure everybody else would.
Yes.
Great.
Yes.
Great. Yes. So thanks for the introduction, Tulika. Yes, I do work in the field of HR, and I've been doing it for almost 16 years now. And as you rightly said, and this is a great initiative one can think of when we think of the situation where we are currently. We are in a pandemic. Everybody is distressed. Everybody is, some people have the clue, some people don't have a clue of what next, how are we going to survive and run through this. So when one of the volunteers contacted me, and if you want to speak about the job, if you want to speak about HR, any field of HR which can help people. So I thought of, okay, what is my expertise? My expertise is recruitment, so probably I can help a few things, with a few things about how to hunt for a job and how to prepare for it. I know there have been thousands of people who have spoken about this already. All the participants who are on the call might have heard from millennia number of people who talk about how to prepare for an interview, how to attend an interview. And in the field of recruitment, I joke it always saying that this topic is like love. Thousands of people can explain how to hunt for a job, how to make for a CV, but there is still more. There's always we can learn new things because the technology is changing, the world is changing, the concept of job itself is changing. So when the concept of job has changed, the concept of a candidate also changes. How we can update ourselves, how we can look at the right places, how we can be a different candidate than the thousands of the people who apply for the job. So this presentation, I'm going to take you quickly through a few slides, which will give you some tips. And as Tulika rightly said, then we'll come back to the Q&A session. Yeah. So this session is for whom? Obviously, we're going to think of who's qualified to attend the session. This session is for all those people who are actively looking for a job right now. This session can also be helpful for those people who are inactive job seekers because they want to know what's available in the market, how I can upgrade myself, but I don't want to change right now. Yeah? And also for those people who are graduates who are just out of college and who want to prepare themselves to the corporate world. Yeah. And for whom this session is not, if you are in distress, or you are a chartered mechanical engineer, but who is ready to work as a CAD draftsman because I want a job right now. I don't care. I want a job right now. If you are a person like that, probably this is not the session because this takes a step back. This reflects on how we can prepare ourselves for a job interview and a kind of thing. If you want to be a CEO in next just 2 years, no, this is not the session for you. Yeah. And if you think there are shortcuts to success, I can crack an interview, I can crack 10 interviews and take one job. No, this session is not for you. Yeah. And why this session? I want to take you through how to understand your goal in life, where you can decide what job to apply for, how to apply for it, how to assess the opportunities available in the market, how to position yourself as the right, position yourself for the right opportunity. Instead of you being the candidate, you can also choose your employer. So how to do that, how to sell yourself, how to quickly understand what are the interview techniques people use, how can you have a counter strategy to the interviewer sitting in front of you, and how to stand out in the crowd and be an employee of choice. So I'm going to talk about these 6 topics. Yeah. So you might be asking this question: how am I qualified to speak on this? Who am I? So as Tulika said, I've worked in the field of HR for almost 16 years. But just like all of us, I come from a middle-class family who don't have any connection to the business world, nor did my family had an inclination to be an entrepreneur. So I had to make my way through where I am today. And I come from an Indian family, just like every Indian parent, they want their kids to be either a lawyer, an advocate, or a doctor, or an engineer, right? So I come from a family of teachers. So I love talking about it. I love training people. I love mentoring people. And I have spent almost 18 years in the corporate, 2 years as a programmer and a teacher, and 16 years as HR. Yeah. And I've been on both sides of the fence. Like, I was a job seeker multiple times, and I had been the hunter also who was looking for candidates. So that makes me a bit qualified to speak about this. And just like all of us who might have lost jobs during the pandemic, in my career also, I've been out of jobs a couple of times, and I've been through the difficult times where I couldn't get a job for 6 months almost. And how if I can do it, if I can take a break for 6 months and still come back and hunt for a job, so can you. And I've also found the meaning and meaninglessness of having a stable career. So this makes me a bit confident to speak about all of this. Yeah. So I started my career way back in 2002. I started as a teacher, as I said. Then I felt the need of studying more. So I left my job, went and did an MBA. And for 3 years, I recruited graduates. Between 2005 and 8, I just recruited college graduates. My job was to take the company banner, go to different colleges, set up a career day, assessment days, and come back. Then 2008 to 11, I took the opportunity to work around the globe. I went to UK, Qatar, Bahrain, and finally now I'm in Dubai. In 2012, I lost my job. Being out of job for 6 months, I hunted. There are opportunities which came my way. I rejected a lot of it. I was audacious enough to reject the job opportunities, and finally found what I wanted. And between 2012 and 18, I changed my jobs 3 times because I felt I can do better. Lost my job again, found myself again. And from 2018 onwards, yeah, I'm just being a common corporate citizen, helping people to find a job and find the meaningfulness of career. Yeah. Before I start how to look for a job, I just also want to speak a bit of philosophy about why do we need to work? Everybody wants to work, right? But why? Because we all have needs. We all have some wants, that I want that luxury, I want this car, I want that movie ticket, I want to go on a trip. We have demands, we have societal demands, we have family demands, we have pressures, we have peer pressure, we have societal pressures. And above all of this, we also have something called as an ego. We have to fulfill and satisfy our ego. That's why we go back and do a job every day. And I turn back to my favorite philosopher of all time, Maslow, who's told why we have something called as a career and a need. Because we have a need. We have to satisfy our basic needs, psychological needs, and self-fulfillment needs, right? And out of the job, we need money, we want independence, we want to control our lives. And that's why we need to work. And finally, I'm sure 80% of the audience in this call, I'm assuming at the same time, we're all from the part of Asia, I believe, where Asians are hardwired to do a job. We see job as an end point. Without job, we can't imagine our lives. A lot of people were scared to step out and be an entrepreneur, do something on their own. We all want a stable career. Because ever since Industrial Revolution from 1820, our education system has changed. Our education system has taught that we have to study, 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 get into a job. So all the courses we study are mathematics, trigonometry, science, physics. And always people look at arts and commerce as tier 2 and science and vocational studies as the greatest things. And because of this, developing economies tend to look for jobs in the engineering and doctor and this advocate, these kind of fields. Parents also have, in India specifically, parents choose what my child wants to be. So we start looking at career as an end point. It's a stage of life without which we can't imagine our lives. Yeah. Some people get it, other people just follow the example. Yeah. Whereas in the developing economies, people are more independent. So because the parents don't put a pressure, you should be a doctor. Look at the neighbor's son. He's a doctor. He's an engineer. What are you doing? So people probably don't do it in the developing economies. Hence, people grow up with an open mind. When I was recruiting for graduates in the UK, I was surprised when I had a culture shock when I heard that if you have, let's say, graduated in 2020, you are considered as a fresh graduate in 2021 and 2022 as well. It's a common practice in the UK that companies have to consider people who have graduated 2 years ago as fresh graduates. In India, if you come and if you tell me that I graduated 2 years ago, sir, but I just packed my bags and went on a travel trip to Southeast Asia, a lot of recruiters, a lot of HR as well, like frown and say, were you out of your mind? Why were you not working? Yeah. So this is the kind of, we're all hardwired to get a job. Yeah. And we think career is more important than happiness. And this actually makes a lot of difference in our lives because we chase a career and we think happiness is a byproduct. If you ask me, it's the other way. You chase for happiness and career just happens to you. Yeah. Okay, let's talk about preparing for a job hunt. Guys, we're all looking for jobs. We're all in a pandemic right now. Let's talk about this situation even more. We're on a large amount of stress. So are the recruiters. Kind of pressure that I'm talking about on recruiters is, today, if I publish a position for a QHSE inspector, a quality health and safety inspector, I get CVs from a driver, I get CVs from a nurse. If I publish a position for a receptionist, God save me, if I publish a position for a receptionist or an admin, you don't even, I can't even end the list of professions people apply for it. Because as I told you, we're all hardwired for a job and we want any job that's out there. I want to get that job and start working. In an economy like Dubai, I can understand that because we're all immigrants in Dubai. You either have a job or you're out of the country. So hence, people get desperate a bit. But I tend to tell people, my friends and and the colleagues or the people who ask for support or for mentoring from me, say, please have a benchmark for yourself and never get below that benchmark. That's the way you land in a particular job. Yeah, I can see somebody's scribbling on my screen. Anyway, it's okay, whatever makes the person happy. But before you search for a job, I always tell people the first thing is mental strength, because you are not going to land in a job in 2 days. You're not going to land in a job in 3 days. You're not going to land in a job probably for a month. And this makes us demotivated sometimes because a lot of people are bad at receiving negative feedback. You apply for 10 jobs, you get 9 rejections, and people are like, why am I being rejected? My CV properly matches the qualification they asked for. We don't know the reasons why you are rejected. So hence we get demotivated. We start stereotyping people. Oh, this company is managed by, let's say, that nationality, so they will only hire that nationality. So we should first of all shed that mental barrier and then be strong enough to search for a job and be in the game for at least a month or 2. Yeah. And then I want everybody who's looking for a job to sharpen their skills, not just because the pandemic asks for it, but look at the job description. I always ask people when they come for interview, have you read the job description? Have you understood the job description? People just read the title sometimes and apply for a job. And they land in an interview and then they were like, okay, oh, this is not, I was not prepared for this. You're asking me a wrong question kind of thing. Why did I lose this? So what I would say, what I would always tell people is look for the job description, read through it, and go back and sharpen your skills. If the position you're applying is for a business analyst, it needs very sharp and strong Excel skills. If you're applying for a research analyst kind of a job, research assistant kind of a job, you need to have a strong PowerPoint skill. So go back, do some free course on Udemy, do some free course on LinkedIn, sharpen those skills, and look at what certifications you have which can complement you, your candidature. Yeah? Then go back and make a CV. Some people call it a CV, some people call it as resume, some people call it as biodata. Being in 16 years in HR, believe me, it doesn't really matter to me whether you use the word CV on top of it, resume on top of it, or biodata. If you Google the words, they all have different meanings, but they, from a corporate standpoint, I don't really care what you write on the CV. But you have to tweak your CV as per the job description. When I say this, guys, please be cautious and listen to me. Tweak your CV as per the job description. Doesn't mean you lie on your CV, but focus on the job description and then redo your CV. Yeah. For example, if you take my CV for now, I have out of 16 years, 50% of my job had been into recruitment. Rest 8 years, I did learning and development, rewards and benefits, employee engagement, well-being. If I'm applying for employee well-being officer kind of a position, that's actually 2 years of my 16 years of experience. But I'm going to focus on that. When I'm going to bullet point my expertise, I'm going to put that on top. But I also put the recruitment part. But I'm not going to lie saying I've been an employee well-being officer for 7 years. Yeah. So first understand the job requirement, then make your CV accordingly. If it means you're applying for 10 jobs, you have to redo the job CV 10 times, it's okay. But again, don't lie and never write anything on your CV which you can't quantify in an interview or justify in an interview. Yeah. Then once the CV is ready, you should get confidence to meet strangers. Okay. And this probably you can do doing mock interviews, or ask your roommate to probably be the tough customer, tough interviewer, and do some mock sessions. Let them ask some questions. Have the confidence to talk to people who are strangers on the road. I mean, it's okay to say hi, good morning to people when you're walking. Some people will be surprised. Why is this guy smiling at me and saying good morning? But it's always good to do that. You never know. Somebody might reply a good morning. That might be a conversation starter. It can break ice, and you might meet somebody, a nice person. So have this confidence to meet strangers and be ready to sell yourself in not more than 20 minutes. Yeah. If you need more than 20 minutes to explain who you are, what you do, probably you're doing it wrong. Yeah. Next point is you should know when and what to talk. Yes, interview is an opportunity to talk and talk and talk, but you should also know when and what to talk. Yeah. And in an interview, guys, have the habit of asking questions. There is always, in a structured interview, and if you're applying for a good company, a good recruiter always leaves 5 to 10 minutes at the end of the interview for you. That's your time to ask questions. And a lot of times, the 25 minutes of interview may not matter, but that 5 minutes of Q&A session might matter and make the difference for your selection. Asking intelligent questions is a very important criteria. When you say ask questions, don't ask questions like, okay, what will be the salary? Then the recruiter is going to think, okay, so this guy's here just for money. He doesn't care about what the job is. Yeah? Ask intelligent questions. Okay, what kind of questions? We'll dwell on that in the next slides. Yeah. And the last bit, always, and this is not for job hunt, in life, guys, ask for more. Never settle for less. Ask for more. It may be salary, it may be responsibilities, it may be freedom to make decisions in your job. Ask for it, because unless you ask, you won't get it. There is a saying, right? Crying baby gets the milk. If the baby doesn't cry, even mom is going to think, okay, he's okay. He's having a good time, yeah? So ask for more always in life, yeah? Let's start the job hunt now. How are we going to start the job hunt? Yeah, we have to look at right places, first of all. Yeah, I've just put I just read, half an hour ago, I got this on the LinkedIn. There's a lady who put, very, very tactically and strategically she has put. So if you read through it, you will see this kind of stuff on LinkedIn every single day. It says, I'm recruiting for Dubai, Abu Dhabi, UAE, Saudi, Qatar, Bahrain, Timbuktu, everywhere, for all positions, new project. If you are interested, just comment interested in your in the comment section. Guys, do you think by commenting interested in the comment section will get you a job? No, it won't. These are sales techniques people put to be a high visibility profile on LinkedIn, on social media. Don't fall prey for that. Read through the entire post. Actually, she has very clearly explained in paragraph 3 and 4. Please stop believing these scams. Yeah. Look for the right places. Put your energy in the right place to look for a job. For example, a lot of people go to LinkedIn Jobs and search for it. But job publishing is an expensive affair these days. If you have to publish a job on LinkedIn, as a recruiter, I'm saying it's insanely expensive. So everybody doesn't publish jobs on LinkedIn Jobs. They put a lot of things on status. So go through LinkedIn status, go through the wall, search for keywords, yeah, like in inverted comma, looking for. So these kind of sometimes help to look for a right job, which is hiding somewhere in a LinkedIn status. Look for social media chatter, be on FB, be on Twitter, be on Reddit. These are all great platforms where a lot of jobs gets published. Be on WhatsApp groups. I personally know in Dubai, there are Telegram groups and WhatsApp groups who help a lot of people to look for jobs. Job sites. Now, when it comes to job sites, there are two kinds of job sites. One is something called as a job board, where a particular job is published for a particular company, like Monster Gulf or Gulf Talent, Bait. These can take you to a particular job in a particular company. But there are something called as aggregator sites, where all the jobs about all the sectors, all the industry, all the companies get aggregated, like Indeed, like Dubai Job Hunt, like Simply Hired. So be on these sites also. Keep looking for the opportunities that gets aggregated here. Yeah. Use your alumni connect. You might have studied in a university. You would have done your master's from a particular university. Be in touch with those people. Always, some alumni connect can help and help land in the right job a lot of times. And the referrals. But when you're choosing referrals, I mean, like somebody say, you call somebody and say, can you refer me to this job? Choose wisely whom you're going to ask for a favor to refer yourself. Yeah. And be connected with that person. Don't just ask for a referral, use the referral, go for an interview, get the job, and don't even inform the person. Be nice enough to close the loop, tell the person thank you, and I'll probably send him a thank you gift. Because you are representing the brand of the particular person who referred you. And you carry a lot of weight on your shoulders when you ask for a referral. So behave, plan, and approach wisely when it comes to referrals. Yeah. Now, once you know where the job is, what the job is, as I told you, make a CV or whatever you call it as. Yeah. And when it comes to CV, I would say KISS approach. Keep it simple and short. Yeah. Any CV which is more than 2 pages, for me as a recruiter, is a novel. And I don't like reading fantasy novels usually. Yeah. Keep it simple. And delete all the unnecessary things. Yeah. What is unnecessary? If you see the right side of the column, you can see. Use the right font. I've seen CVs in Comic Sans font. I mean, if somebody is writing CV in Comic Sans, tell me the seriousness of the person who's searching for a job. Yeah. Use the right font. Arial, Times New Roman, Calibri, very safe fonts. Don't use fancy handwritten or Edwardian scripts. Yeah, I can't read through such. I'm a 42-year-old man. I can't read through all those scripts, and I will not take your CV seriously. And delete the junk. When I say delete the junk, your height, weight, passport number, objective. Sometimes you're on reference. They don't matter. Honestly, they are space eaters on a CV. I'll tell you why. Don't write an objective, because there are tricky recruiters who will make or break just using the objective column. I have been recruiting graduates. When I recruit a graduate, believe me, I don't ask anything about technical. I just hold on to that objective line and ask him and drill down. What do you mean by it? You want to be a valued employee, you have written. What do you mean valuable employee? What value you can bring in? So to be on a safer side, guys, I would say lose the objective. Don't have it. You can have your objective here, not on the CV. I don't need your height. I don't need your weight. Unless you're applying for a bodybuilder's position, I don't need that. Your passport number is your private information. Keep it to yourself. You can talk about your age, no problem, if required, because some jobs need certain age group. But don't put your date of birth. It's not required. References, people write, will be provided upon request. If you're going to provide your referrals upon request, why are you going to talk about it on CV? Delete that line. Yeah. No one cares. Honestly, no one cares about it. I mean, it's just a footer. People don't read it. Yeah. Rather, speak about you, your jobs, your skills, your greatest achievements, your projects you have done. Yeah. Write about it. And use very simple and light colors. It's always great to have designer CVs, but use lighter colors. pleasing colors. Yeah. If you're an engineer and architect and you want to talk about 15 different projects you have done, because all those 15 are greatest projects in the world, don't put it on CV. I would say make a separate section, call it as a portfolio. If your recruiter asks for it, send it separately. Your CV should be 2-page. That's it for me. There are people who come with audio CVs, video CVs. There was a craze 5 years ago to make video CVs, and it's dead now. And I don't see anyone making video CVs, but it's okay. You can have an audio CV, video CV, paper CV, whatever it is. But remember, you are the best CV. Yeah, the paper CV can only give you a glimpse of it. You getting prepared for the interview is more important. And as I previously said, don't write anything on the CV which you can't justify in an interview. If you have been a part of a project, it's okay to write about the project. But writing that I've been a project manager of that project is wrong. It's illegal. It's immoral. Yeah. Don't write that. Be simple, keep it simple and short, and talk about your skills, no problem. Yeah. Once the CV is done, you get the first call, right? Everybody gets a first telephonic interview. Okay. In the telephonic interview, I tell people, if somebody asks for a tip, avoid talking too much, because if I am the job seeker, I want the recruiter to talk more, because that's your very sweet spot of understanding what the job is, what kind of company you are stepping in. So you should actually interview the interviewer in the telephonic interview. Yeah, avoid talking too much. Let the recruiter sell the job for you. It's his job to sell the job. Yeah, so every recruitment call is a sales pitch. He is pitching for his company. You are pitching for you as a employee, right? Let him talk. Let him sell the job to you. Once he sells the job, ask for details like who's the hiring manager, maybe which nationality. It's good to know. Nothing stereotypical or racist about it, but you can ask what kind of person he is, what he values, what's the company culture. Do you guys want like 5 o'clock in the morning? 8 o'clock you have to come in the morning, 10 minutes late. People are frowned upon. Ask questions like what kind of, you do have a flexible culture? How is performance managed in your company? What kind of PDR technique you have? Ask for such questions. And try as much as possible to avoid salary talk. Yeah. Unless you are looking for just a salary increment, stop the salary talk. At least the telephonic call is not the time for it. I always tell people, if you get a call, even if he pitches, let's say 1,000 dirhams less than what you're currently getting, you say, I'm okay for that. Go and meet people. Have the face time. You know why? One, it gives you confidence that I can face an interview. 2, you are networking with people who are in the same industry, who are looking for people. It's always great to have connections on LinkedIn, connections with people. These referrals might work somewhere else. Go and meet people. A 20 minutes or a half an hour face-to-face interview won't hurt. You can always take that much time off. Yeah. So if somebody offers you a little less salary, go on. It's okay. Go and meet them. Yeah. Position yourself for the job. Yeah. Always. Don't do it the other way. Okay. So the reason I say avoid talking too much and let the recruiter talk is because recruiters are going through a lot of CVs. Out of 10 CVs, you are the one person he has called you. That means you're valuable, guys. So use that attention very wisely and ask questions, And when he's talking, be genuinely interested, ask for more stuff, ask for more questions. Yeah. In the meantime, I always tell this to my closest friends, keep your social media cleansed. It's always good to have opinions. On FB, on Twitter, I see people talking about left wing, right wing, politics. It's okay, it's good. Nobody would judge you on that. But opinions are one thing, having a wall around your mind is another thing. Make sure your Facebook timelines are not a dead giveaway that you are somebody who supports that kind of an ideology. Keep it clean, simple. Decide what kind of references you want to give. Who will be your reference if you apply for this company? Who will be your reference if you apply for another company? Yeah. And go back and sharpen your job specific skills before you go for the interview. Yeah. Now you have jumped the first hurdle. Sorry, 2 hurdles you already jumped. You have shortlisted your CV. You got the first call. Let's go into the interview. Yeah. Basics of interview, everybody knows, be on time. When I say on time, actually I mean be early. 10 minutes early won't harm you. Dress to impress. You don't have to wear a necktie, waistcoat, and a jacket on top. A formal shirt, a tie, no tie, it's okay. There are a few people who judge you on the way you're dressed. Few people won't. So be safe. Probably have a formal shirt and carry your jacket. You may wear it, you may not wear it. That's how you play safe. Yeah. Be specific. I mean, be a bit careful about your health and hygiene. Nobody wants a sweaty candidate in a meeting room. Yeah. So take a shower. Use a perfume. Yeah. Nothing's too strong. Go for the interview. Now, before you step in, you should know where you're going into. What's the lion's den? Who is the lion whom you're going to talk to? Yeah? You should know. There is no excuse to this. You should know which company you're going in. What's the vision of this company? Latest news about the company. How much profit they made last year? Who is the hiring manager? What's his preferences? Probably, I mean, I would say it with a caution. Go and stalk him on LinkedIn and see what kind of profile he has. Where has he come from? That will tell you probably a bit about the person. Yeah. Then you can position yourself to answer the questions. It's always important to have some small talk when you walk in. Don't straight away start, hey, I'm here to get interviewed for this position. I graduated this year. No, nothing hurts if you talk about weather a bit. You can talk about the game you watched yesterday. Nobody would say, please shut up, let's get on with the job. Yeah. Probably there might be 1% of recruiters who do that, but everybody loves some small talk. Break the ice with some small talk. Yeah. Be confident, be true to yourself and the paper. And instead of paper, the CV. Whatever you have presented in the CV, the same thing you should talk about. Because recruiters and the hiring managers would very meticulously look through what you have written and what you're talking. If there is a mismatch, I know a very good friend of mine who would read every CV by line. He would make your notes about you and then come into the interview. Just like you have prepared for the interview, the hiring manager also has made preparations. So be specific and true to the paper. Decide whether to walk or run. I mean, when somebody asks you a question, you can straight away jump to the point and answer that question, run with it or walk through it. Build a story. Let somebody say, tell me what's your greatest achievement in the 15 years of experience. So start with a small talk like how you are more interested in this particular part of the industry, then you got into this and I got this project. And I started as a team member, but through time, I became the project manager. How? Then you talk through it. Yeah. Set a standard for yourself and never back out. When I say set a standard, through the interview in 15, 20 minutes, if you are a good job seeker, you will know the mood of the interviewer, whether he's looking at you genuinely, whether he's taking notes, whether he's yawning, whether he's looking elsewhere. You get to know where you are standing slowly. Yeah. So if you think somebody is not taking too much interest in you, keep your answers short. Let's not waste anybody's time. Through the interview, some recruiters can really get on your nerve and ask irrelevant questions. Try to take you away from the interview path. Stick to yourself. If somebody asks you a question which you think is unethical, just to please the interviewer, don't say, okay, I'll do it. No, set a standard for yourself. Never step down from it. Now, we're all doing interviews, right? So there are different interview techniques. It's always good to know if you are the candidate, what kind of interview techniques are being used upon you. Is it a job simulation? People will give you a case study. People will give you an Excel sheet and ask you to work through it. There are virtual interviews. There are structured interviews. That means there are 20 questions they've already prepared and they will ask you only those questions. They wouldn't go otherwise. There is semi or unstructured interview. And my favorite one, which a lot of people use, is STAR technique of interview. STAR technique, what people do is they ask for a situation. They'll ask you what are the tasks you had, what actions you took, and what are the results. Yeah. So situation, task, action, result. So they will ask you a question. Tell me, explain me a situation where you did this. Then they will ask, okay, how did you do it? What actions you took? What are the results through it? So they will go through all of it. So have your answers also ready for a STAR technique kind of interview. There are always also casual, over the coffee, over the lunch kind of interviews. A lot of people think these are casual interviews. Actually, a lot of recruiters use casual interviews as a great data gathering method about the candidate. Yeah. So just because the interview is casual happening in a coffee shop, don't be casual about the interview. Okay. You should still be serious about it. Okay. Once you're done with the interview, you come back, you have to close the whole process. I would always say you have to wave and nudge the recruiter. Wave means after 24 hours, Send an email, send a message. It was nice meeting you. I hope you also had a good time through the interview. After 72 hours, I would send an email. Guys, it was nice meeting you 4 days ago. Did you take any decision? Just give them a reminder that I'm waiting for a result. Yeah. Then, if the offer comes through, negotiate. When it comes to negotiation, people use two kinds of approach. One is, I funnily say, chat-to-chat market. So chat-to-chat market in Thailand, it's a street side market. Yeah. If you want something if they are selling something for 40 rupees, the cost of it is 40 rupees, they will sell you, 40 dirhams, they'll say 80 dirhams. Just for the sake of it, they will increase, and because they know the person will anyway negotiate, and we have to reduce. Similarly, you also, if you're looking for, let's say, 15,000 dirhams of salary, I would say ask for 20. There's no shame in asking for 20,000. Anyway, there will be negotiation. It will come down. Yeah. Remember, every position, this is a reward experience. From the reward experience, I'm telling you, every position has a minimum salary, there's a median salary, and there's a maximum salary. So recruiters have that flexibility always. So ask for the maximum, they will bring you down to the medium. If you ask for the median salary, probably will end up with a minimum salary. That's why. Yeah. And some people they don't negotiate like this. They use the luxurious Victor Lustig approach. Victor Lustig is a guy who sold Eiffel Tower to somebody twice, not once, twice. So if somebody can sell an Eiffel Tower, telling that this belongs to me, yeah? So they talk high level. They will say, "Oh, this salary is not enough. I live in JLT. I live in the Springs. I can't even pay my salary rent with it." So it's up to you which approach you want to use. You want to be the luxurious negotiator or the street smart negotiator, but ask for salary. I would always say, when you're signing the offer, go to the office and sign the offer, because that gives the recruiter confidence that, okay, this guy has walked through the office, he's committed to the job. I don't need to have a plan B for this candidate. Go and sign the offer. When you're doing that, ask for some company internal reading material, ask for a magazine they might have, ask for the newsletter they have. So it will give you some information about the company before you enter the job. Yeah. This also will tell you what kind of a company it is. Going through the newsletters will tell you what kind of a company it is. Follow their social media, be updated about what the company is doing. Yeah. And then be in touch with the recruiter, refer people you know. Be a valuable contributor from day one. Yeah. But believe me, after all this, if the interview doesn't go through well, if the offer is less, if the offer is not negotiated, if the experience is not great, don't hold a grudge. Nobody owes you anything in this world. We are all independent, mature people. We have to look for our own jobs. Out of 100 applications, 10 might get selected. Out of 10 interviews, you might get 2 offers, and you might accept 1 offer. It's okay. That's what the funnel looks like. In a recruitment structure, that's what the funnel looks like. 5,000 CVs come in, 50 people get shortlisted, 10 gets interviewed, 1 get offer, another is a plan B candidate. That's it. Yeah. This is where the job hunt ends for a lot of people. Once we have an offer, okay, that's it, I'm done. But guys, even when you're stepping into the job, I would say have a 30-day, 60-day, 90-day plan when you join a job. Share this plan with your line manager. Understand your probation period objectives. Always sit with your manager and ask me, what are in the next 6 months, what are you expecting from me? Write it down, work towards it. Break the ice faster in the company. Don't be one of those silent and strong types who will sit in the corner and expect people to come and talk to you. No, go out, talk to people. When you talk, when your face is visible, is when people will remember you. Yeah. Know your friends and foes. Again, know what and when to talk. Everybody wants to talk. Everybody wants to have an opinion, but it's okay to step back and let other people talk also. Yeah. In the first 6 months, or at least in the first 90 days, don't be a person who will throw opinions all around the office. You will not probably get more friends through it. Yeah. So don't just end with a job hunt. Once you come into the job, also probably have these plans. That will be quite helpful for you, is what I would say. Yeah. That's all I wanted to talk about. There are a couple of links I can share in the chat later, which will talk to you a bit about how different people look at jobs differently, and how there's HSBC survey which was done, which has very interesting findings about how different kinds of nationalities look for different things in life when it comes to a job. Yeah. So I'll share this in the chat window later, and probably you can read through it. Yeah. So that's all I had to talk about, or take you through this. And yeah, stopping the screen. I'll hand it back to Tulika. If you have got some questions, I'm happy to answer. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Raghav. It's been such an enlightening session. All of the points that you've mentioned, I could actually foresee it. I could actually see through it, and I could actually feel like I've lived that every moment. From the time that you said about how you lost a job for 6 months, you didn't have a job. I've gone through myself the same thing. And many of our volunteers in the group as well, including the founder of the By Jobs Hunt, Aval Pinto, he himself has gone through this. And that's the reason of this group itself. So he started this group because he didn't want people to go through that trouble of, not having a job and not having any kind of guidance as to what they can do in the next steps. So very, very interesting, and really enjoyed through the session. And yes, I do have a couple of questions. So I will quickly start. And I would also like to inform the audience that if you have any questions to ask the speaker, please feel free to send me a message and we will address it in the session today. Great. So I would like to start with my very personal question, in fact, about myself, because as I was going through the session, I did come across a couple of thoughts in my head. So I thought, why not address it? So interesting thing which you said was ask for more, right? So when you said ask for more, the very thought that came in my head is, even in the existing job, do you think it's a good idea to go ahead and tell them that, hey, I'm looking for a hike because my roles have increased, my job description has increased, or rather the work that I'm doing is much more. So when do you think is the right time to do that, and if it is the right thing to do?
Okay. Really interesting thing you asked about, because we currently are doing it in the place where I work, and slowly, Tulika, what I can see is in companies, people are coming up with this recruitment policy where every job gets published only internally for the first 1 week. And after that, they go outside looking for fresh candidates from outside the market, unless it's a very specialized role where, very niche skill or whatever. So when you say ask for more inside the company, this is where it helps. Every company opens the position first only for its own employees. So this is the reason you have to keep asking your managers once in a while that, I've done this, I want something more. So and then the manager would say, okay, I'm okay with you looking for in that department or this section. When is the right time? I wouldn't take any candidate seriously if he wants to change a job or ask for more within 6 months. Less than 6 months, if somebody wants to move to another chair, I'm going to consider him as a job hopper, because honestly, 6 months is very small, very short duration I'm talking about. When would I change my job? I always try to give at least 2 cycles. When I say 2 cycles, 2 years. Because the first year, in the first 6 months, you go through the probation, understand the job. After the 6th month, between 7th and the 18th month, for the next 1 year, we deliver. We understand the job for 6 months and then we deliver. And after 18 months is when I can assess myself. Okay, in the last 1 year, we've gone through one whole financial year cycle. And I think my PDR rating has been, let's say, 4 out of 5. Yeah, 4 out of 5 is a good rating. That tells you that your manager is quite happy with what you're doing. Now the question is to myself: the manager is happy. Am I happy with what I'm doing? So then, in the 18th month, at least you start asking your boss or your manager. I don't want to use the word boss, manager. So go and ask your manager that I think I'm cut out for something more. Is there something else? Can you enrich my job in the position itself, or you think I should go out into another department and look for it? So have that honest chat. Minimum 18 months is what I would look at. But if somebody comes to me within 6 months, I'm not only going to tell him, no, you can't apply for a new job. Probably I'm going to start having an opinion about the person also. Yeah? And as employees, as candidates, the last thing you want is your manager or your interviewer having an opinion about you. And that probably is going to curtail your chances of getting into a new job. Yeah? Now, Is it so easy that I can walk into, just waltz into my manager's cabin and say, can I apply for a job? No. That's why I said 18 months or 2 cycles, because 2 cycles is a credible time where you can take your PDR ratings and tell your manager that you had these objectives. I've excelled in all of it. You yourself has rated me 4 last year, and this year you have told me 5. 5 means you have exceeded expectations. When I've exceeded your expectations means I have more than what it takes to perform this job. So can I please look for something else? Now, now is this easy? Actually, this is more easier because you are carrying an evidence in your hand. You have 2 PDR papers with you. Yeah, true. You're not just waltzing in and say, I want to be the CFO tomorrow. Yeah, you're asking for a senior accountant position. I think you're eligible for it. You have the moral rights to ask for it because you proved yourself for 2 years. Yeah. And you have to be confident. Yeah, you have to be obviously go and ask for it. Otherwise, so then the manager say, okay, wait for it. In that particular department, there are some new positions coming up. I'm in touch with my peers there. The position will come internally, apply for it. Or there are really good managers who would say, sorry, dude, this is what this company can offer. This is what in my hands, but I'm interested in your development. Hence, do you want to go out and apply? Okay, be my guest and do that. But keep me informed about it. If I were the manager, I would probably do that to my teammates. Everybody would do that. I'm not sure, but we should have that confident and ability to ask our managers for more after 2 years. Nobody can stop you after 2 years unless you have scored 1 and 1 and 1 or 1 and 2 in your PDR. Nobody can stop you walking into your manager's office and ask for it. So prove yourself once, prove yourself twice, then go and ask for it.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Raghav, for answering the question. Makes sense. Great. I will move on to the questions by the audience. The first question that I got was, how can we use LinkedIn effectively? Before I ask you to answer, we recently had a session about LinkedIn from our very volunteer Shishma. So you can go ahead and also have a look at that session. We can share the link of our YouTube channel. Probably you can go and have a look at a detailed view, and probably even Raghav can give us some insight. Over to you, Raghav.
Yeah, LinkedIn was one of my top favorite social media when it comes to corporate and professional development. It is still there. But unfortunately, I think during pandemic, this started probably. LinkedIn started becoming a bit like a Facebook very recently. But across my heart, I still have a lot of respect for LinkedIn because it connects like-minded people. It's a great tool where people can endorse your skills. Yeah, it's a great tool where you can take somebody else's help to market yourself. There is something called as recommendation. These days, LinkedIn comes up with people can recommend you for certain skill. You can build your skill gap on LinkedIn. There are certifications LinkedIn is presenting these days. I just recently took an exam or a test, and it rates your Microsoft Excel ability. It rates your Outlook and PowerPoint ability. So LinkedIn still is trying its best to be your CV. So it's a great place. It's a great place to network. It's a great place to look for jobs. It's a great place to put yourself out as a candidate also. As I told you, LinkedIn Jobs obviously is the best aggregator, but go through the status updates also. But just don't go through the status update. Just don't like something which you like. Just don't give a reaction. Comment, because comments usually start a discussion. Obviously, we have to be respectful of everybody else's opinion, and more so with the author who has put a post. Engage yourself in conversations on LinkedIn, because people do look at the comment sections a lot. If there is a really interesting chat about work-life balance, for example, somebody has put an article about work-life balance. Talk about your experience of work-life balance. Talk about your opinion about how you can have a work-life balance. Those comment sections can break your ice. Some people recognize your ability to think straight, think broad. You may be a candidate, indirect candidate, right there and then and there. All selections are not done in an interview room. Remember, Okay, you might get a mental offer by a HR manager, by a recruiter, over a post you have put on LinkedIn, over a comment you have put in LinkedIn also. Every interview doesn't happen between four walls. Yeah, how we carry ourselves, how we interact with other people on LinkedIn makes a lot of difference. It's a very powerful tool. But yes, a lot of people can be gullible, and I see a lot of heartwarming stories on LinkedIn these days. Believe me, I think only 10% of those stories are true. I read stories like, oh, I recently interviewed a candidate. He was not switching on the video because then I asked him, why your video not on? And he said, sorry, ma'am, I live in a one bedroom or a studio apartment, and my wife. A lot of painful story. And the recruiter says, I like this honesty, and made an offer. Wow. I don't think those things really happen in real life. I mean, not at least 100% of the time. Nobody would give you a key of a Lamborghini which is parked next to Emaar Boulevard, right? We have to work for it. It doesn't happen always like that. So LinkedIn sometimes tend to be a bit very heartwarming place, but a lot of people are doing that, copy pasting from somebody else just to get more likes, just to make more visibility. They're using you as a tool for them to market themselves. So LinkedIn is a great tool. Be there. But instead of liking, giving heart, being clapping emojis, I would say engage yourself. LinkedIn is a great platform to start talking. Even I was very shy to write at one point, yeah. But I took my guts and probably put a couple of articles on LinkedIn. I've still not done more justice to it. I can still write more, I know, but I concentrate my time elsewhere to write. Not in LinkedIn, but it's a great place. I would say every career-oriented person must be on LinkedIn, should be on LinkedIn, be connected to people. Ask your friends for recommendations. Ask your colleagues whom you work with. Ask your managers whom you work with for recommendations, because a good recruiter always will look for recommendation section. He's going to read through it. He's going to see what your previous manager has spoken about you. So it's a great tool. And searching through it, as I told in the presentation also, don't just look for LinkedIn jobs, look for the status also. There are Boolean searches one can do, there is logical searches one can do, and look for jobs. Sushma has done a really great presentation previously on how to use LinkedIn. LinkedIn still remains top one choice for recruiters to search for candidates. Yeah. So your presence there makes a lot of importance as a difference. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Raghav, for answering the question. I have also shared your LinkedIn profile here in the chat box for people who would like to connect with you. Going on, I would ask the next question, which came in my chat box. It is a very interesting question, and this person is a very, very experienced person. And he's had over 10 years of experience in UAE, and before that, he was in KSA. And he's jobless, and he's looking for a job, and he wants to understand what can be done in terms of finding a job, especially because he is so experienced, and there's a lot of competition in the market with the younger people. So what do you think? How does it make sense, and what can he do in terms of finding a job?
Dear sir, ma'am, see, just like every company is different, just like every job is different, every recruiter is also different. Because recruiter is also a human like you and me. Yeah, a lot of times we feel my CV looks great, my experience looks great. Why am I being rejected? Is my CV not correct? Sometimes, a lot of times, in the UAE, I think I can throw the statistics, how much are inaccurately or accurately. 60% to 70% of jobs get closed internally or through a referral. UAE is a very close-knit job market. Referrals usually help. So if you're applying for a company, I would say, again, use LinkedIn as a tool where you can ask somebody to refer you for that particular position. Lot of companies, applicant tracking systems, ATS like Taleo or iGrass, whatever they're using, they usually ask for a referral inside the company also. So if you know somebody who is working in that particular firm, mention their name. I wouldn't say you are losing your edge because of younger people. Younger people come with age or more energy probably, but more experienced people come with experience, and nothing can replace experience. Believe me, nothing can replace experience. He may be the most handsome person in the room. He can come in with pinstripe jacket, but if he can't answer a question, very basic question, no recruiter is going to shoot himself in the foot by selecting that younger person instead of you. There are reasons why we get rejected. As I said, some companies have a requirement to publish the job, audit requirements, even though they would have had somebody in mind already inside the company. Okay, don't hold any grudge against the company for that. I'm actually happy if a company closes that job internally, because they are valuing their employees. They're keeping the most valued talent inside the company. If you and I are in such a company, we should be proud of being in a workplace like that. Yes, if you're an external customer, we always feel sad that I didn't get selected, but somebody else did. So most of the time, it's internal candidates. If you're an external candidate and if you're still not getting selected, I would say probably look at your CV once again. And I recruit for one of my jobs that I recruit for. It's a blue collar job. Yeah, believe me, blue collar workers won't make a CV because they hardly are computer literates. They will take somebody else's CV, just change the name and send me the CV. So 99.999% of the CVs I look at are same. So I get bored looking at the CV. So probably make your CV stand out a bit. As I said, use some colors, use a picture of you. In the objective section, if you want to write about an objective, write some interesting thing. And also, a lot of recruiters straight away they don't go to which company you work for and all. They look for what you have done. So some candidates, what they do is, I'll tell you a typical CV format, how it looks like. An objective, my education qualification, where all I have worked, and what I did. So the recruiters will lose interest till the time they come to the third point, what all I did. So it's quite sometimes important to put some column called as expertise or my core competency. Right above, right on top, what you are really good at. Let that be the first bullet point on your CV. If 10 years of experience in hospitality industry is your core competency, let that be the first bullet point. A lot of people don't realize the positive message of your longevity in a company. Let's say out of 10 years of experience, 8 years you work for only one employer and the other 2 years with somebody else. That 8 years is a great testimony for your skills, how the company valued you and kept you with them in this competitive industry. You've been with the same employer for 8 years. That speaks volumes about your stability, your eagerness to give the best to the company. Let that be on top of your CV. That a company recruited and kept me and developed me for 8 long years. So let that, out of 10 years of experience in the XYZ industry, out of which, bullet point 2, I worked in one company or this company for this many years. Bullet point number 3, I started as a graduate recruiter, graduate engineer. By the time I moved after 8 years, I was the senior project manager. That probably is 4 steps you have climbed in a company. This is your core competency. This speaks volume about you. So put these things on top of the CV. Probably to grab some attention, I would say, put it in a pictorial format. Make a PowerPoint these days comes up with smart art, right? So you can say 10 years of experience, 8 years in this company. Below that, you can use a smart art which says, I started here, then became this, then became this, then became this. As humans, we have this baby instinct to look for pictures. So sometimes pictures do attract a recruiter's knowledge, recruiter's eyeballs. So once he looks through the CV, if a recruiter spends 3 to 4 minutes on your CV, 2 pages of your CV, that means you've sold yourself to the job. So make your CV interesting a bit. You might want to talk a bit more about you, which is not just about professional experience. Talk about what else you do. 10 years ago, people used to write hobbies. Yeah, I don't think that makes any more relevance these days. But you can still talk about the charity drive you would have done probably. How you feel for the community. How you are not just a candidate. How you are not just an employee, but you're also a human being who wants to contribute to the community. Talk about it. People who are engaging themselves in charity events, or you have done something for other people. People who are enthusiasts in fitness. For example, if you have done a 10K in Dubai Marathon last year, it's a great talking point on your CV. Write about it. Make yourself stand out of the crowd. Yeah. Never think you are losing your edge because of another graduate engineer or a graduate who's walking into the job market. You are still you. Nobody can take that essence that you have just because you're a younger guy. Yeah. Having said that, a word of caution. If I think, oh, I have 10 years of experience and I must get selected, probably we won't. We have to keep ourselves updated. You're an AutoCAD draftsman, let's say. You have been certified on AutoCAD 2014. We are working on 2020 now. So have you updated your AutoCAD skills? Have you got a certification? So keep yourself updated. Attach, if you're done any certification courses, talk about it at the top of your CV. Keep doing some courses. These days, there's a great website I'm not marketing this website. Udemy is one site which I like. For $10, probably you can do a great course. Get yourself out there, study. There are free courses on LinkedIn. There are a lot of free courses you can do and get to know more about it. Read, so that one call when it comes, you can impress the person with your telephonic discussion, because CV can only do this much of service. Rest everything has to be sold yourself. So I would say redo your CV a bit, and I don't see the importance of a covering letter these days. The new age recruiters don't really care about covering letter. You have a CV, you have a portfolio. If you are an engineer or something, those two things are important. Keep the CV 2-page, rest everything goes on the portfolio. Yeah, that should help. I hope I have given him answer. He might have heard it from 10 other people. I might be repeating it if that's there, and I'm sorry about it. But keep yourself updated. There is always an opportunity out there waiting for you.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Raghav. We are getting a lot of questions. Like, the questions are just pouring in. I will take a couple of more. We will probably have to keep it short so that we can finish it quickly. Great. So the next question is very interesting. So this person asks that why industry plays a very important role in recruitment. Finance people can handle anything easily. So why is recruitment so important? So I don't know what kind of question he wanted to ask here, but probably he means that why recruitment is in the limelight, which I feel obviously it will be due to the current situation of COVID and people. There are so many
favorite topic I talk about, so I keep it short, but I'll answer the question.
Right, sure.
Everybody thinks they can do a job. Okay, everybody. I've had meetings where my colleague walks into my office and say, "Hey, I recently got married. My wife is a BA economics. Do you have some HR job?" I was like, "Dude, your wife is a BA economics. What will she do in HR?" Because a lot of people think everybody can do HR job, yeah? Because it's just administration. Actually, it's not. And recruitment becomes is in the limelight because a recruiter is qualified, certified, educated enough to gauge people. As I told you, a recruiter is a salesman. He sells the job to the candidates out there, and he also at the same time is a purchaser who gets the right candidate into the company. A recruiter knows in and out of the company what the salary benchmarks are in the company. He knows how we train people, how we develop people. So a recruiter actually has more knowledge about HR than a HR operations person. Yeah, and it takes a lot to be a recruiter. Nobody can just come into HR and say, "Okay, I'll start doing recruitment tomorrow," because you can have really tough candidates. I once had a candidate where the line manager next to me was a civil engineer. He kept on asking irrelevant questions. The candidate at one point lost his cool and say, okay, I know you're not selecting me. Now you tell me the answer to this question. Now, I was a very young recruiter at that time, and I didn't know how to handle the situation, because the line manager here is like, no, you are the candidate. You must answer. Don't ask me the question. And the candidate is also senior enough. He has 15 years experienced, a chartered civil engineer. He says, no, you are just taking me for granted. So a recruiter has to step in and diffuse the situation between two heavy egos. Yeah. At the same time, you can't lose objectivity. You can't recruit just because somebody is pretty, somebody is handsome, somebody comes from Harvard. No, right? He can be still from Harvard, but I might be interested in somebody from Punjab University because the person is street smart. He knows how to job done. So a recruiter plays a very crucial role in selecting a candidate and in publishing a job. So recruiter is in limelight for a good reason. And I have greatest amount of respect for the recruiters because I've been one myself. And recruiter saves my time. As a HR manager, he saves my time by giving me the best and the right candidates.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Raghav, for answering the question. There's a very interesting person and someone who I've known for quite some time since the COVID times, and he was actually volunteering with us as well. I wouldn't like to take his name personally, but what he says is he's 55 years old. Okay. And he says that, is it really possible for me to look for a job? I've been in the same job, same salary for 4 years. And I've been performing excellent in terms of performance. But my boss has not given me single increment since 2017. His attitude is, take it or leave it. I'm scared I may not get a new job, so I'm continuing here. That's what his question is, and he's 55 years old. Oh, dear Raghav.
Sir, you're 55, and I'll definitely have to call you, sir. See, it boils down to what values we have and what we're looking for. Yeah. At 55, people usually assume, okay, you're almost close to retirement. 60 is when people pack their bags, go back home, and do some, in Hindi we call the word Tirth Yatra. So that's the time for doing Tirth Yatra. So at 55, do you really want to be in the job still with a boss whose attitude is not great towards you? At 55, do you still want to be in a job which is not paying you a single dirham of hike? The hike part is a very sensitive one because in the last 4 years, I know Dubai, if you are working in Dubai has been going through quite a tough time. There are probably 75 to 80% of people who wouldn't have got even a single dirham of hike, or probably not more than 5% of hike. The question you have to ask is not just, am I not getting a hike? The question is everybody else getting a hike and only I am not getting it? Yeah. So if that is the case, that means the company is giving everybody else a hike, but you are not getting it. There may be performance disparity between the expectation of your manager and you. Yeah. And let's be objective and honest enough to ourselves. If you're not performed great, manager might say, okay, you have a job, do that. That's the greatest thing as of now. But if you think your performance appraisal has gone great, your colleagues you're seeing colleagues throwing party to other people. Hey, I got an increment. Usually I don't encourage people to talk about salary and increment and all here also. So if you see some people are celebrating because they got a hike, but you didn't, the question you have to ask your boss is not about why am I not getting a hike? The question is, I see some people, other people are growing. What's lacking in me? How can I be that person? Don't ask why am I not getting a hike? Probably ask a question, why is the other person getting a hike? Then that will also tell you what the expectation of your manager is, expectation of your company is. But if you're being treated unfairly or immorally, I would then say, take a call to leave. Yeah. Would you find a job? I don't have a magic wand which will say that. But if you are a niche skill employee, niche skill talent, definitely you'll find something out there. If not higher salary, at least for the same salary, you will definitely find something out there. But a golden advice I tell everybody right now in 2021, if you have a job, don't leave and go look for something else. Yeah, probably you might have to drag yourself for a year more and then look for it. Otherwise, there are a lot of consulting opportunities these days. People are moving from permanent employment to temporary employment. There are projects out there. Network and see if there are 4 different clients who can give you 4 different projects. Then probably take the plunge, leave the job and search freelancing. Yeah. when you don't feel as getting up in the morning and going to office, probably that's where you have reached an end. That's a retirement we should think of, not the age of 60. Dubai is slowly tightening the screws in terms of retirement age. 60 tends to be the last year where somebody gets a job. So if you have something in hand, I would say don't leave it and go look for something else. Yeah. Right. But you will definitely get something. There are companies who are looking for expert freelancers. They are looking for people. You will get something for sure.
I think absolutely he can definitely move to the consulting role. I know him personally, and I feel he's really, very good in his advice, and he can really help people in a lot of other ways. So thank you so much, sir, for the question. And I'll move to the last question of the day. So sorry for the ones who I wasn't able to take the question. You can connect with the speaker, or you can connect with me, and I can help you solve the question and answer your question. So the last question that I would like to ask is, if we have a gap in work, should we reduce our salary expectations, or what do you do in terms of the market pay? Because let's say you are very experienced and you had a gap in your career, and the market market salaries have gone really low. So what would you recommend in terms of that? And also an add-on question to that, how would you showcase that on the CV?
I'm a great fan of people who take breaks from jobs. If I am the recruiter, I would actually have half an hour conversation just on the gap itself. Like, what did you do? Where did you go? If somebody has taken a break and packed his bags and gone somewhere, that shows confidence that he has that, I can come back and look for a job. That also tells me about the candidate, what kind of outlook he has. He's not a racehorse who just wants a job, 9-to-5 job, who wants to just earn money. This is a candidate who wants experience, a life experience. People like this grow faster in the career route. They become managers or project managers much faster because they are more flexible. They're not afraid to take risks. So if you have a gap, don't try to cover it up. As long as you have a valid reason why you had a gap, okay, never be scared of that. This is what I told you about having a benchmark for yourself. Yeah, if you've taken a gap for the right reason, that's your benchmark. I know why I took a gap, and I can defend that with my answer. Yeah, if the interviewer is not interested, that's a different thing. Yeah. Personally, me and my wife wanted to take 2021 as a gap year ourselves, hire a bus, remodel it, and go all over India. Okay. Unfortunately, COVID is here, and we wanted to postpone it for 2 more years. And I would do it, and I'll make sure in my CV also, I'll put that as a gap year, and I'll write what I did. I traveled India. I did something like this, because this tells you more about you as an employee, as a candidate, that who is confident, who wants to take, who's not afraid to take risks. And I have great respect for young guys who come from India on a visit visa and look for jobs, because these people who are working in Genpact somewhere, Accenture, very cushiony jobs, yeah, they leave that, come here on a 3-month visit visa, look for a job. And I admire such risk takers, and I've never shied away from taking him through the second round of interview, and let the line manager do the decision instead of me. But we are changing, guys. The world is changing. It's no more that older era or older generation of employers who wanted 23 years of your life in the same company. I still have the greatest of respect for people who spend 20 years in the same company, but I will not also not judge. I will not judge anyone if he has 4 companies in 8 years on the CV. That means you would have felt of asking for more, right? That's why you would have jumped a job. As a recruiter, as HR, I will definitely drill him, ask him, why every second year a new job? If I'm your manager, what it takes to me to hold you guys hold you in this company for 4 years? I'll ask him that question. I'll make sure he's uncomfortable with the question. But if you have gaps, if you have jumped too many jobs, don't get scared. We live in a new era. We live in the time of Upskill or Upwork.com, where people are temping these days. There are people who work for 4 months. They don't even work for the next 8 months because they make enough money in those 4 months They don't get a PF, they don't get a pension fund, but people don't care anymore. Yeah, job is just a part of your day. And I want all my candidates also to start having that outlook that job is where you spend half of your day. That's it. That is not your life. Yeah. Yes, career is important, a stable economy, stable money, everything is important. But life is also more important. When you retire 60 years later, do you want to have a billion dirhams in your account, or do you want to have a billion stories to tell your grandchildren? Tell me about it. Stories. And that makes, yeah.
Absolutely. Stories is definitely something very, very interesting. And when you were giving this example, there's one person who came to my mind. There is a volunteer in Dubai Jobs Hunt. He basically left his job in a company, an ex-company, which is a very well-known company in India. And he moved to Dubai. And I used to wonder at times, why would someone leave that company? Because I myself worked in that company. And I would be like, why? Why would he do that? Trust me, he survived and he thrived and he's so successful today. He has worked and been in this region on a visit visa for over a year. And he's finally got what he wanted. I wouldn't take his name. Perhaps you will get to interact with him later sometime. But it is really inspiring of how people are, missioned and envisioned as to what they want to do in their life. So very, very interesting. And thank you so much for sharing all these beautiful insights. And I do have some more questions, but I'm so sorry because of the time.
I'm more than happy for people to connect me on LinkedIn, and the message box is open. We can talk there. I might want to put probably this in a form of an article or something in my LinkedIn profile, and we can discuss in the comment section as well.
Sure, perfect. Sounds amazing. What I can also do is I can also share a couple of questions which have come my way, but I couldn't address it, so that you can also take it ahead later. And everyone who would like to connect with you, I have shared your LinkedIn profile, and I will reshare it later. I would like to present this very small little bouquet from our Dubai Jobs Hunt and Brain City family, and to thank you for being here with us today. So great. And I will just quickly finish the session and say thank you so much to the audience for joining us today, and also for any further you would like to go ahead and connect with us, you can connect with us on Telegram. We have a Telegram chat section, we have Facebook, and we have our Pinto the Game Changer page as well, where he talks about various subjects in terms of how you can get a job. You can also follow us on Instagram. This is our Instagram handle, dubaiJobsHunt.tgh, and you can also visit braincity.com, where you can see a lot of courses which we are sharing. We are also on YouTube. You can check our YouTube page as well. And the next episode is going to be on the 18th. And with this, I would like to say see you soon. And thank you so much for joining us, Raghav.